My 7-year-old grandson's voice came through the phone, shaking. A number I didn't recognize flashed on my screen, and my heart skipped. I never expected to hear from him like this, not after everything that had happened. It had been 6 months since I last saw Liam. His mother, my daughter-in-law, Rachel, had stopped letting me visit. The pain of that distance had eaten at me every day, but I respected her wishes, thinking that maybe it was just a phase. Then the call came. The voice on the other end trembled, filled with fear, as he cried out for help, his words barely audible. Then I heard the sound of a car door slamming, and the line went dead. My hands froze, and my heart pounded against my chest. I hadn't seen my grandson in so long, and now here he was, alone, scared, trapped. I didn't know what to expect when I got there, but I knew I couldn't wait any longer. I immediately grabbed my keys from the hook, grabbed my coat, and rushed outside. My phone buzzed, but I didn't check it. I had to get to him. I drove through the darkened streets, each second feeling like an eternity. My hands shook on the steering wheel, my mind racing. What had happened? Why hadn't Rachel answered when I called? I tried again, her voicemail greeting echoing in my ear. Each message left unanswered. What was going on? The drive was long, 45 minutes through dark, winding roads, and my thoughts kept spiraling. Flashbacks of the past flooded my mind. 4 years ago, my son Danny's tragic death on Route 60. A truck had run a red light. I still couldn't believe he was gone. He was only 32. And then my husband Walter, strong as a rock, held it together for the funeral. But 3 weeks later, he was gone too. Heart attack. Grief had taken him just as it had taken Danny. I had lost so much in such a short span of time. The weight of the loss was unbearable. Rachel and I had clung to each other, shared the silence, and for a time it felt like we were all we had left. But then, she met Derek, and things started to change. At first I thought he was a good guy. He seemed kind enough when he came to pick her up, but soon the visits stopped. Every week became every other week, and then once a month. Rachel said they were moving. Derek had a better job opportunity an hour away. I helped them tack, but Derek barely acknowledged me. He seemed distant, and Rachel? She seemed distracted, anxious, like something was wrong, but she didn't want to say it out loud. After they moved, I tried to stay in touch, but Rachel always seemed too busy. She said Liam was doing fine, excelling at school, but something in her voice didn't sound right. I couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. Then, 6 months ago, Rachel finally agreed to let Liam come to my house for Sunday dinner. But when I saw him, it was like a punch to the gut. He was too thin. His shirt hung off his little frame, and he barely touched his food. It wasn't like him. When Rachel went to the bathroom, I grabbed an old cell phone from my junk drawer, the one I kept charged just in case. I knelt down beside Liam. "Listen to me, sweetheart. I'm going to put this in your backpack, okay? If you ever need me, if you're ever scared or you need help, you call this number." I showed him the contact labeled Grandma. "You can charge it behind your dresser. Just plug it in when you're alone. Nobody needs to know. Can you do that for me?" He nodded, but his eyes were wide, haunted. That was the last time I saw him. I kept calling week after week, but Rachel's answers were always the same. "We're fine," she'd say. "Don't worry, Liam's doing great." But I knew better. I knew something wasn't right. That Tuesday night, everything changed. I finally arrived at their house, Pine Street, the place that had once been filled with the joy of Liam's laughter, but now it felt empty, neglected. The house was dark. No one answered the door, and fear gripped my chest. I knew I couldn't leave. I had to find him. I walked to the side of the house and picked up a smooth, heavy rock from the garden bed. It was the only choice I had. With shaking hands, I smashed the kitchen window. The sound was deafening in the silent night. I pulled myself through the window, ignoring the glass that sliced into my hand. I didn't care. I had to find Liam. Inside, the house smelled of old garbage, stale beer, and something sour that I couldn't place. The living room was a disaster. Empty beer bottles scattered across the coffee table, cigarette butts in the overflowing ashtray, fast food wrappers strewn across the floor. And there she was, Rachel, passed out on the couch. Her clothes were stained. She reeked of alcohol. I shook her, but there was no response. I checked her pulse, slow but there. But then I heard it, a faint cry coming from upstairs. My heart nearly stopped. I ran up the stairs, blood from my hand staining the railing, desperate to get to him. I reached the room where the sound was coming from. There was a lock on the outside of the door, a sliding bolt, the kind you'd put on a shed. I could barely grip it. My hands were slick with blood. I finally slid it back and opened the door. Liam was there, on the mattress. His little body was barely there, so thin it made my stomach turn. His hair was greasy and too long, his pajamas too small. In his hand, he held a baseball cap, my son Danny's old cap. His eyes were wide with fear and relief. "Grandma, you came," he whispered. I crossed the room and dropped to my knees, pulling him into my arms. He was shaking, so light, like a child far too old for his years. "I've got you," I whispered into his hair. "I've got you now." As I held him, I felt every bone in his body, his ribs pressed against my chest. His skin was cold, and his body was trembling with fear, with the hunger that had been gnawing at him for so long. "Tell me what happened," I whispered. "He locks me in here every night," Liam said. "He doesn't let me out until morning. Sometimes he brings crackers, sometimes a sandwich, but sometimes he forgets." His voice dropped. "When he forgets, my stomach hurts really bad." "What about your mom?" "She sleeps all the time," Liam said, his voice small. "She doesn't wake up when I yell for her." I didn't know what to say. How had this happened? How had it gotten so bad? When I heard Derek's voice downstairs slurred and angry, I knew I had to act fast. He was coming, and I wouldn't let him near Liam. I grabbed my phone, called 911, and let the operator know what was happening. "I'm taking him with me," I told the operator. The sirens came fast, and within minutes, 2 officers were inside the house. I pointed them to Derek, who was slumped in a chair, drunk. They arrested him on the spot, and the paramedics took Rachel away. But Liam, my sweet, fragile boy, was safe, and he was staying with me. Forever. Liam was whisked away to an examination room immediately. The young doctor worked swiftly, checking him over, but I stayed close, holding onto his small, fragile hand. The whole time, Liam didn't let go of me. His grip was tight, his knuckles white, as if he was still afraid that if he let go, I might disappear. "Grandma, I'm here," he whispered again, his eyes tired but filled with a faint spark of hope. "Are we going to your house after?" he asked. "Yes, sweetheart. We're going to my house. You're safe now. I've got you." The doctor was gentle with him, measuring his weight, height, and checking his vitals. But there was no mistaking the severity of what had been happening. Liam was malnourished, dehydrated, and underweight for a child his age. His eyes were dull, his energy low. The doctor noted his severe weight loss, and my stomach clenched. He hadn't been eating properly. He'd been starving, not just physically, but emotionally too. The weight of all that trauma was more than a 7-year-old should bear. After a few more hours of testing and some fluid IVs to help hydrate him, I was finally allowed to take Liam home. I carried him to the car, the weight of his tiny body making my heart ache. The drive home was quiet, just the sound of the engine and Liam's soft breathing. He had fallen asleep within minutes of being in the car, exhausted from everything he had endured. When we arrived home, the house felt different. It felt safe. I carried him inside, up to the guest room, the one with clean sheets and a soft quilt. The room was ready for him, but what I didn't expect was the relief I felt when I tucked him in. I hadn't realized how much I had been holding on to, how much I had been waiting for this moment. He didn't stir, not even when I kissed him on the forehead. I watched him for a while, letting my mind replay the series of events that had brought me here. It felt like a dream, a nightmare, but now with him here, safe in my care, maybe it was the beginning of a new chapter. That night, I sat at the kitchen table, my hands shaking as I wrapped them around a warm mug of coffee. The world outside was dark, but I felt a flicker of light inside me. I had done the right thing. I knew that. But it didn't take away the years of pain, of neglect Liam had suffered. I stared out the window, lost in my thoughts, remembering Danny, remembering Walter. The ache of missing them would never go away. But at least Liam was here now. I had him, and I wasn't going to lose him. The days that followed were filled with routines, small victories, and quiet moments of healing. Liam woke up late the next morning, his body still weak from everything he had gone through. When he saw me, his eyes widened for a moment, unsure if he was still dreaming. But I smiled, assured him, and made him breakfast, the first real meal he'd had in a long time. He was slow to eat, picking at the food like it might disappear, testing if I would take it away. But I didn't. I let him eat at his own pace. And when he was done, I cleaned up and made sure he had everything he needed. Little things, like fresh clothes, a warm breakfast, and most importantly, a safe space. I couldn't undo what had been done to him, but I could give him something now, something he'd never had in that broken home. Stability. Days turned into weeks. Liam started to gain weight again. The first month he gained 10 pounds. His body started to change slowly, but it was progress. Small victories, each one marking a step toward recovery. He began to laugh again. He started talking more. He even made a friend, Marcus, from school. And though he was still haunted by his past, he was slowly coming back to life. The nightmares were less frequent, though they still came. I would sit beside him until he calmed down, whispering to him that he was safe. Rachel had missed several visitation appointments. The court was clear. If she didn't show up sober, she wouldn't be allowed to see Liam. The first time she showed up at the visitation center drunk, the social worker turned her away. But she didn't give up. Slowly, she began to sober up. She attended therapy, checked into a rehab program, and started attending Alcoholics Anonymous meetings. A glimmer of hope began to shine through the clouds of darkness that once consumed her. 2 weeks after the full custody hearing, the process had started to feel real. I was starting to breathe a little easier. Liam was thriving in my care, and the courts had confirmed that. He was eating better, he was sleeping more soundly, he had started school again, though the first few days were hard. He was nervous, scared to trust anyone, but he found comfort in routine. His teacher, Miss Phillips, was kind and patient with him. Every day after school, he would run to me, his face lighting up with the simple joy of being home. We would sit together, talk about his day, and I would make him a snack. It was simple, but it was everything to him. Rachel, on the other hand, was still fighting her demons, but she had started showing signs of real change. She completed her rehab program, attended her AA meetings faithfully, and even started working again. I didn't know what to make of it. Could I trust her? Could Liam trust her? That was a question I couldn't answer yet, but I wasn't going to close the door completely, not when she was trying.
I began to receive updates from the social worker who had been monitoring Rachel's progress. "She's doing well," the social worker said one day. "She's sober, consistent with her meetings, and she's working now. But you need to be cautious." I didn't need to be reminded. I was cautious. I always had been. But Liam started asking about her. He started asking why he couldn't see her more often. The first time he asked me if she could come to his birthday party, I froze. Was he ready for that? Was I ready for that? I called Rachel. I told her it was Liam's 11th birthday and he wanted her there. I wasn't sure if I was doing the right thing, but she was sober, she was working hard, and it was time. The party was small, just a few of Liam's friends, and of course, Rachel. I watched as she gave him a baseball glove, Danny's old glove. Liam looked at her and then at me, his face a mixture of confusion and hope. He didn't know how to feel. I didn't know how to feel either. But for the first time in years, I saw something in Rachel's eyes, a sincerity that had been missing for so long. She was trying for him. As the years passed, Liam continued to grow. At 12, he was doing better than I could have imagined. He had friends, a routine, and most importantly, he had hope. He had started to heal. It wasn't perfect. We had setbacks, and Rachel wasn't always there when we needed her. But Liam had come so far. We had come so far. Rachel continued to visit him. Slowly, they rebuilt their relationship. It wasn't always easy. Sometimes Liam still struggled with the pain of what had happened. But with each visit, he became stronger. I watched as he let his guard down little by little, trusting her again. I knew it would take time, but I was willing to let them try. After all, he deserved that. They both did.
This time, it wasn't the fear and panic that gripped me. It was a familiar, comforting sense of anticipation. I learned not to fear the unknown anymore. I had seen Liam transform before my eyes. He had gone from a child who barely spoke to someone who was starting to find his voice again. He had found a sense of security, a sense of belonging that he never had before. I smiled as I reached for the phone. "Grandma?" Liam's voice came through, and it was filled with that familiar sweetness. "I made the team. I'm going to play on the school's soccer team." For a moment, I just stood there, stunned. The joy in his voice, the excitement that radiated through his words was everything. It was the sound of a boy who had once been trapped in a dark room, isolated and starving, not just for food, but for love, attention, and care. And now, here he was, living his life with the passion and energy that I hadn't seen in years. "That's amazing, sweetheart," I replied, my voice thick with emotion. "I'm so proud of you, Liam. You're going to do great." I could hear him beaming on the other end of the line. "Thanks, Grandma. I'll be practicing all week. Can you come watch me play at my first game?" It was a simple request, but it filled my heart with such profound joy. He wasn't asking for much. He just wanted me there, like any other child would, to watch him live his life, to support him in his passions, to be part of his world. "Of course I'll be there," I promised. I wouldn't miss it for the world. The days leading up to the game felt surreal. I kept thinking about everything that had happened, how far we had come, the moments of doubt, the fear that Liam might never heal from what he had gone through, the struggle of trying to put together the pieces of our fractured family. But here we were. Liam was thriving, and I had a sense of peace that I had never felt before. The day of his game, I was up early, preparing his favorite breakfast, scrambled eggs with toast, a small bowl of fruit on the side. I made sure to tell him how proud I was every chance I got, though I knew he was aware of it. The boy who had once been so frail and scared had become this bright, energetic young man, and I couldn't have been prouder of how far he had come.
We arrived at the field, and Liam was full of energy, running around with his teammates, laughing, warming up. I sat on the bleachers, my eyes fixed on him, my heart swelling with pride. The game started, and Liam played with such passion. He was fast, skilled, and completely in his element. Every time he sprinted across the field, I felt the weight of the past lift off my shoulders just a little more. As the game continued, I couldn't help but think about the other people in our lives, the people who had failed Liam and me. Rachel had done her best, but the damage was deep. She had started to rebuild, and I had to admit that she had made great strides. But there were still moments when I had doubts about her. Could she ever be the mother Liam deserved? Could she ever make up for the years of neglect, the trauma she had caused him? But then I remembered something important. It wasn't just Rachel who needed to change. We all needed to change. I had to let go of the resentment and anger I felt toward her, not just for Liam's sake, but for my own peace of mind. Rachel was trying. She was sober, she was working hard, and she was making an effort to be there for Liam, even if she hadn't yet earned his full trust back. As the final whistle blew and the game ended, Liam's team won. The whole team gathered in a huddle, celebrating, and Liam looked toward me in the stands. His eyes locked with mine, and in that moment, I saw a glimmer of the boy he used to be. He was smiling, laughing, and for the first time, I didn't see the scars of his past. I saw a child who was free. The next few months were a turning point for all of us. Liam continued to excel at soccer, his schoolwork, and most importantly, his therapy. He was healing, and I could see it more clearly each day. The nightmares had almost stopped. He was sleeping better, and his appetite was improving. He was no longer that fragile child I had found locked in a room. He was a child full of life, ambition, and dreams. And I couldn't have been prouder of how far he had come. Rachel's visits, those still supervised, began to show some promise. She came to Liam's games, supported him during his therapy sessions, and slowly she began to repair the bond they once shared. It wasn't easy. She had her setbacks, and there were moments when she would call me, distraught, feeling like she would never make it back to the woman she wanted to be. But I always told her the same thing. Keep going, one step at a time. There were days when I felt frustrated with her, when I doubted her ability to truly change. But as I watched Liam grow, I realized that we were all healing. It wasn't just about fixing the past, it was about moving forward, together, even if the road ahead was uncertain. A year later, on Liam's 12th birthday, I couldn't help but reflect on everything that had happened. We had thrown him a small party, his closest friends, his therapist, Rachel, and me. It was a celebration of him, of his growth, of the fact that he had made it through so much and was still standing. His birthday cake had blue frosting just like the year before, and we all gathered around singing happy birthday with joy in our hearts. It was a different celebration from the last one, lighter, brighter, filled with hope. Rachel had shown up early, bringing a gift, a new soccer ball, one Liam had been eyeing for weeks. She looked different too. Her hair was shorter, healthier, her eyes clearer. There was a peace in her that hadn't been there before. When she handed the gift to Liam, their eyes met, and for a moment, I saw something that made my chest tighten. I saw love, genuine love for her son. It wasn't perfect, but it was real. As the evening came to a close, I watched Rachel leave, her hand on Liam's shoulder. They walked out of the house together, and for the first time, I didn't feel that knot of worry in my stomach. I didn't feel the need to guard Liam, to keep him at arm's length from his mother. He was growing, he was learning, and so was she. I stood at the doorway looking out at the setting sun, a soft smile playing on my lips. I couldn't erase the past, but I had done my best to give Liam a future filled with love, with security, and with the freedom to dream. That was all I could ever hope for. Liam came back inside, his face flushed with excitement. "Thanks, Grandma. Best birthday ever." I kissed the top of his head, feeling the weights of all those years we'd fought through together. We had made it, and now we were free to move forward, one day at a time. That's my story. I hope it resonates with you. Sometimes life throws us more than we can handle, but it's not about the setbacks. It's about the strength we find to keep going. We all have a second chance, a third chance, a fourth chance. It's never too late to rewrite our stories. Thank you for taking the time to listen to mine. If you've been moved by the story or have a similar experience, I'd love to hear from you. Leave a comment, and don't forget to subscribe for more stories about life, love, and second chances.
The house felt quieter now, and in that silence, I could feel the weight of the journey we had walked together, a journey of pain, healing, and growth. I had feared for Liam's future, unsure if he would ever recover from the trauma of his past. But looking at him now, laughing with his friends, hugging Rachel as she left, I knew we had made it. We had rebuilt our lives, piece by piece. I watched him settle in for the night, and when I tucked him in, I couldn't help but smile. He was safe. He was loved. He was finally living a life he deserved. So here we are, 3 years after that terrifying night. Liam's growth, his progress, his joy, it's all a reminder of how much we can endure and still come out on the other side. Yes, there are scars. And yes, we carry the weight of what happened, but we are stronger for it. And Liam, my sweet boy, he's stronger than I ever imagined. He's thriving. We all are. Rachel, too, is on her own path. She's sober. She's trying. I can't change the past, but I can choose to support the future. For Liam, for all of us. This is the end of one chapter, but it's far from the end of our story. Our journey continues. There will be more challenges, more victories, and more moments of quiet joy. But for now, I can rest easy knowing that Liam is in good hands. My hands, his hands, and the hands of those who love him. And that's what family does, doesn't it? We find our way back to each other no matter how lost we might feel. We forgive, we heal, and we grow.